organized or getting that done like that.
Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Town of Delafield Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, February 24th. Please stand if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would please call the roll.
Supervisor Mahoney-Ogden.
Present.
Supervisor Miller.
Present.
Supervisor Wolfley.
Present.
Supervisor Berkowitz.
Present.
Chairman Kranek.
Present.
Thank you.
There are no citizens in the audience, so I'm going to skip over the citizen comment period. Item 5, approval of minutes. So I'd look for a motion to approve the February 10th regular town board minutes.
I looked them over. I didn't see any things glaring. So if anybody else has any other objections, I would motion to approve minutes from February 10th of 2026.
A second.
Motion is second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item will be action on approval of vouchers for accounts payable and payroll.
Motion to approve check register dated February 24th of 2026 for checks 69246 through 69322 in the amount of $5,371,948.94. Page here. Yeah, with 2.3 million of that going to the Kettle Moraine School District and 1.1 approximately going to the Arrowhead or School District of Heartland and the Lake Country School District or Arrowhead School District at 616. So that's why that number is as large as it is.
Big because of the tax payments to the school districts.
Right. Yep. And then payroll check register dated February 27th in the amount of $16,916.20.
A second.
Motion is second for accounts payable and payroll. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? They're approved 5-0. Communications, there are none. Item 8, unfinished business. Included in our packet were the survey results to date. Does the administrator have any comments or color to add?
I just didn't know if you guys saw anything on there that you'd like me to address, or if you had an idea of when you want to turn this particular version of the resident survey off, or if you'd like another email push, anything like that.
What's the expiration date on the survey?
Whatever you tell me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, being that there were comments, oh, I don't even know about this survey, I don't even know about this survey, you know, I think leave it up a little bit. You know,
Yes.
I don't necessarily have a time in mind, but I think just because we're hearing this, I think there's nothing wrong with it. We can always just be like, you know, we had it up for 6 months or whatever, just whatever number we pick. I think sure to just, at some point or other, when's the last time we did the reminder? I know we've posted it a couple times, but
Right after the last meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
So then maybe
so-
don't do it right away. I mean.
Sure.
Can you remind me when we released it again?
It went out like with the tax bill, so it would have been around
Okay.
mid-December.
And is the amount, is that still considered, I know it seems small, but is
It's
that,
generally speaking low.
that's lower than
Yeah.
what things should be? So I think that's the bigger thing, is if we ask it again, what can we do? I know we talked about this before, steps that we can take, so I think we'll just address that when it's time to do another one, what we can do to get some better response.
Right. And then there's one IP address that looks to have submitted approximately 12, 12, resident surveys. Did you want me to filter those out?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be.
I was curious because I feel like there's
Yeah.
a theme in the comments as well.
I don't know, I can't pinpoint down whose IP address that is, so, but I can take out the multiples that show up under that category. So I'll do that for the next run.
Thank you.
Item 9, new business, presentation by Lake Country Fire and Rescue Fire Department for 2025 services and future service needs. Chief Fenning has been kind enough to join us this evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Good to see everyone. So Chairman Kranek asked that I stop by tonight and kind of give you a little bit of a backstory on how we got to where we are at today, because I understand in a little bit we're going to be talking about the potential referendum and things that moving forward. So I know there's some new faces on the town board, especially since this whole thing started off in 2020, 2021, at that time. So really to give you the total backstory is, you know, the town of Delafield joined Lake Country Fire Rescue officially on January 1st of 2021. That was, as everyone remembers, during kind of the middle of COVID and everything that kind of was going along with that. And shortly after that, about 9 months after that, we really started to feel the pinch of the staffing issues that were related to a reliance on a part-time paid-on-call model that had been suffering for some time, but finally was really starting to show its real weaknesses. So in 2022, we started working really in about May of 2022 on a formal plan to get the 7 communities out of the current state and into the future state, if you will. So that plan was worked on all throughout 2022. There were multiple renditions of it. First one went to our board in July of 2022. They asked me to sharpen the pencil on the whole entire thing and come back to them with a couple different plans, which we did. And ultimately, on November 11th, 2022, a formal staffing plan, a 5-year staffing plan, was adopted by our fire board. Now, important to note that since then, that staffing plan has been modified by the communities because of funding formulas and just different things like that. But what's important is the board approved that in November of 2022. And in January of 2022, this town board made a decision to go to referendum for a portion of the staffing plan. So I believe, and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, at the time, the staffing plan really called for 28 additional hires. And the town board made the decision to put 14 of those hires into that referendum that was passed in April of 2023. Knowing full and well that the remainder of the staffing plan would have to have some future funding mechanisms tied to it at a later date. We didn't know if that was 2 years down the road. We didn't know if that was 10 years down the road. But to fully adopt the full staffing plan, if you will, that town board at the time was fully aware that a conversation like this was going to need to happen in the future. And Ed, if I'm, in fact,
That is correct and 100% accurate. We were fresh off of everything that had happened in our communities to the west with Western Lakes and the referendum. And so we went for 14 of the 28, so we were going to bite off half of the
Right.
staffing plan, and knowing that at some point we'd have to go for the rest of it.
correct. Yep. So, you know, fast forward, you know, then some of the funding formula and funding discussions started happening amongst the 7 partners. There was the infamous Kettle Moraine meeting, which happened in September of 2023. In fall of 2024, all of the communities finally got in line and really decided that they were going to work with the Wisconsin Policy Forum on a future funding formula that would fit the needs of all 7 partners. So in the summer of 2025, the communities worked back and forth with the Policy Forum on negotiating the ins and outs of that funding formula. Chairman Kranick was present for the majority of those. Later in the year, he stepped aside from that, and Supervisor Wolfe stepped in, and have been working on that really ever since. Obviously, there's been some consternation and some discussions between the communities on different things, but really where it sits as of today is that and actually I can say that all 7 communities last summer adopted the future funding formula, and that future funding formula was the 2025 version of it was a 32.5% through the fixed formula of it, and then a 50, 25, 25 call volume to population to equalize value percentages. Part 2 of that is supposed to happen in 2027, where it goes to a strictly 60% call volume formula, 20% equalized value, 20% population. Again, all of the 7 partners have formally agreed to that formula by motion at a board meeting, which would have been sometime July, August of last summer. And if I'm wrong on any of that, Ed, fact check me on it, but I believe
No,
everyone's.
every community's agreed to the funding formula change. It's the other issues with the changes to the IMA that we're
Correct.
still negotiating.
Correct, correct. So that's where kind of, we got through all that, and then it came to formalizing the intermunicipal agreement document. And there were some discussions had with that intermunicipal agreement. Michelle was present for most of those discussions. Chairman Kranick was present for most of those discussions. But really, what it came down to is, in about September of last year, it became very apparent that we weren't going to have that formal intermunicipal agreement document signed by all 7 partners, just because of some of the legal reviews that needed to happen to it still. We were coming up on the 11th hour on everything. So we kind of invoked Plan B, which was for everyone to do the 1-year amendment, which you're currently operating under right now, while the communities agreed to, shortly after the first of the year, to get together and discuss the formal intermunicipal agreement amendment, put this thing to rest once and for all. So that's really where it sits today. Joe and I sat in a meeting 2 weeks ago in our fire station, and really walk through at a super high level the puts and takes that were remaining, I think, in that document. And thanks to Joe for calling the meeting and getting everyone on task. The meeting went well. There are some hurdles that need to be crossed yet, though. We have another meeting scheduled for next week, Tuesday, where the administrators will sit down and, there's things that are very simple in the intermunicipal agreement that probably need to be looked at. A great example I can give you is that the intermunicipal agreement says anytime there is a change or a resignation in a board member, that the community, so for instance, if the town of Delafield changes a board member or has somebody resign from the board, you have to notify in writing to all 6 of the remaining partners. They have to send us, not a certified letter, but you have to notify them in writing, and there's just some things that go back and
We're
forth.
talking about the fire board, correct?
Fire board or fire commission?
Fire- yeah.
Yeah. So, point being, that has never been done since we started in 2021. And it's just kind of like, those are things, housekeeping items that should probably be discussed and should probably be cleaned up. I think it's fair and reasonable for, if the town of Delafield has somebody step away from the fire board, that Michelle simply notifies our secretary treasurer, Stacy, and Stacy can notify the other partners. There's things as simple as that. There's some things that might get a little complex about our budget cycle, and some things that I've asked for to clean it up, because when I present the draft budget to the fire board in July, there are swag numbers in there. There's numbers that we're guessing on for health insurance. There's numbers that we're guessing on for Wisconsin retirement system. And we all know that if the budget comes in lower than those numbers, everything is hunky-dory. But when the state gives us our health insurance numbers or our retirement system numbers, and they're higher than the expectations, some people become derailed on that. So we want to get the budget timeline locked into a point where it's probably less of draft and more of final numbers. Just things like that. And I think the way we put it and the way we left the partner meeting, Joe, is that there are some grammatical changes and procedural changes that need to happen in the agreement yet, but the contextual changes in like the policy level decisions were made at that meeting 2 weeks ago, where the direction has been made. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it sits today. At the end of the day, the other thing that kind of comes up a number of times is that the communities have tentatively agreed to, there is a change in, I guess if you want to call it voting structure on the board, where it no longer needs every community to vote yes for any motion to pass. It simply needs actually needs a 6-to-1 vote for it to pass, plus a majority. So that is a win in and of the fact of one community can't arm wrestle the rest of them. So I think it's a great step forward. And I think we're moving, it's all moving in a very positive direction.
Good.
So, but yeah, that's, point being, the final funding formula is a 60-20-20 funding formula with nothing through the base.
Thank you.
Questions for me?
Do you agree with that update on the February 11th?
Yeah, I
meeting?
mean, I would cautiously optimistic, right? I mean, the nuts and bolts that we're getting hung up on for the past couple of years seem to be very well sorted. And it's the kind of, when we had that meeting, you know, I said, look, we're going to, you know, the goal is to modernize and, you know, pull out some of the stuff that can make for bickering. You mentioned there's a couple definitions of like, when's midnight, right? Does it end on the 30th or does it start on the 1st? And, you know, just that kind of stuff that we didn't, you know, as the group of 7 elected officials in that meeting don't need to be the ones hashing that out, right? That's why you pay an attorney. So, you know, I think we're mostly there. I haven't seen if there is actually a finalized rough draft or anything yet, but we got a meeting soon, so assuming that's going to be coming shortly. And I would knock on wood that assuming in any of the changes or updates or things that will be advised by the attorneys to make it a little tighter, should not be of any contentious arguments, and that we can move forward and
Yeah.
prove it, bring it back to the board so we can, everybody here can have that final approval and then put the final signatures on it.
I appreciate the cautious optimism, Supervisor Wolfley. I am, you know, a lot more cautiously optimistic regarding this, seeing that the administrators haven't looked at it yet. There's not a final document. I know that there was an article in the Freeman on the 13th of February, and I've got, you know, several phone calls and emails saying, congratulations, you should be popping the champagne.
Yeah, I want to do that just
Far
yet.
from that.
And I've said, you know, the only thing accurate in that article was that Chairman Kranick is very passionate about fire and EMS.
Well,
And,
you know, and I think that part of what when we talked about too, that I wanted to kind of stress in the forming of around anything that may be of a concern is that the industry standards that we are seeing in the neighboring communities. You know, I like I said, want it to be a modernized document that can continue to move Lake Country Fire successfully forward for years and years and years to come, and not be, if there is a issue, concern, problem with one community saying we shouldn't do that, we should do this, we should that we can point back to our local other examples saying, look, this is how 9 out of the 10 other communities handle a situation like this, right? Get it to be more of a standardized document where we aren't bickering about that kind of stuff.
yeah, no, it's all good things. I just, you know, I feel like this, you know, 6 of the 7 communities have, you know, been aligned when it comes to the staffing plan, and, you know, had the 6 communities had their way, the staffing plan would have already been implemented. And, you know, I know that, you know, last Monday, the mayor gave a mayor's update to his common council saying, it's all done, the saga's over, you know, get ready to have a, you know, signing ceremony in the next couple months. And I just, you know, want to be on the record that that was very, very premature. And I will pop the champagne, you know, when the final document has passed all 7 communities and everybody is signed on the dotted line.
I agree.
So
Sure.
I
Well,
just want to throw that out there.
If the city being the sticking point and he's that confident, I am, like, that's where I gain my cautious optimism from.
Okay.
So, but I mean, you're not wrong. Obviously, it's not done until there's pen on paper. But you know, I don't think I'm not foreseeing that there's going to be any major curveballs or anything that's going to come out of that.
I really hope not. But, you know, I mean, he left the meeting last July saying he's got to go sell it to his council, and, you know, knowing darn well he was having meetings with Chief Bowen at Western Lakes, and on that Friday he published an agenda saying I got to explore all viable options. And I will argue till the cows come home that Western Lakes was never a viable option, and it was a delay tactic, and that's why it's not done yet. So I just want to state that on the record.
Sure thing.
Can I close this chapter for a second here? I really want to, you all for years have listened to me banter about response times, and you've listened to me banter about the importance of staffing and staffing these fire stations. And this has been a hard lift for everyone financially, coming to terms with that the old model is kind of sunsetting and that we need to address it with a newer, more modernized model to using your terms. And, this whole thing came to fruition on Saturday morning, where we were dispatched to a fire alarm, which for most practical purposes, 99.9% of fire alarms are false alarms, right? It's easy to get complacent when you do 99% of a false alarm. Our crews didn't handle it as a complacent call. They handled it as they normally would. They arrived on scene. And not only did they find a fire, but they found victims trapped. And we had a 7-minute response time to that scene. We were able to get the victim out in less than 5 minutes, and they had the fire under control minutes after that. And, it's easy. As the fire chief, that is not my doing. That is the doing of the crews that were working that day, excuse me. But it's also your doing, because you have listened to me and you've invested and you've sold to your constituents the importance of what is going on and what we need to do. So you need to be commended just as much as Lieutenant Herman and firefighter paramedic Christian and firefighter paramedic Bresnahan and the one other one that I'm forgetting, which is, sorry, I had to look it up, Alexis Calahar. Those 4 individuals were the heroes that night. They went in and did what they were trained to do, and the results show for it. And there's somebody that would not be alive today if we were browned out. Very clear. I mean, the toxic conditions inside that residence were unsustainable and incompatible with human life. And they went in and did it. So, again, you should be credited. The crews need to be credited because they went in and did their job. But it's what they did was nothing short of remarkable. But it's because they had the tools in their toolbox, thanks to you for investing in them, that they were able to do that.
Well, and quite frankly, that's why I've been as passionate as I have, throughout this whole, scenario. And, I think people know I missed a few meetings this fall. And, I had a medical emergency on the morning of September 11th. And by all accounts, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the quick actions of the first responders that day either. So, like I said in that Freeman article, I'm very passionate about it, and I'm even more passionate about it because I think we all deserve at least a chance. And that chance is making sure that these stations are staffed and people are trained and they can get there, within a reasonable response time.
Anyways, thank you for listening to me ramble.
Thank you. And don't forget about Franklin.
Oh,
Yeah, don't forget about Franklin.
Franklin
made it out too.
too, so. Thanks.
So after explaining kind of the importance of why we need to maintain and continue the staffing plan, item C, consideration of amounts needed for future fire department needs as they relate to a referendum. Administrator Lukey put a really nice memo together.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of recap the memo for anybody that didn't read it at home or have a chance to see it yet. So I did ask the fire chief to give me the numbers specifically for the town of Delafield from 2027 through 2030, and I've included that on there. I've also included a estimate of what our levy is going to be for those exact years as well. And based on those two numbers, it looks like by the time we get to 2030, 95.6% of our tax levy will be used by the fire department. When I say that, I just want to specifically say that that would be our tax levy, which is approximately $2.4 million. We also get additional revenue from licenses and permits, fines, penalties and judgments, public charges for service, and intergovernmental. So this is what's really going to drive the referendum question when we bring it up for August, is that if we use all of our entire levy on the fire services, there's not going to be much left for even the staff that's here, let alone the equipment that we use to snow plow and so forth. It wouldn't affect garbage because that's something that we take the money in from the taxes and it just passes right through to the garbage. But for everything else, it would impact us greatly if a referendum were not to pass. We are currently doing a higher than normal amount of borrowing for the roads because we're taking those funds that we would otherwise use for the roads and put them towards the fire department. So we kind of want to bring that back down to normal as well with the passing of the referendum. I do have three options of how you want to go about the referendum with the residents. Option A is the minimum ramp coverage, and when I talk about the ramp, I'm talking about the increase year over year that comes from the fire department's numbers on page 1. This would be kind of the bare minimum approach just to make ends meet. The example is in there per the tax impact per 100,000, and then there's a sample referendum question that I'm not going to read because it's pretty standard, the language. The next option is option B, the stabilization approach, where, like I said, we would get roads back on track and use the referendum money strictly for the fire department. The tax impact per 100,000 is also on there, which would increase approximately, $7 from option A. And then again, there's some sample referendum questions in there. And then option C is the smoothing average, where it's kind of just over the entire time taking a general in between option A and B approach. On the next page after the options, I have the projected town mill rate impacts of those three. We're looking at, specifically for the town rate, going from $1.14 per 100,000 of assessed value to the highest, which would be $1.31 in the first year there. So we're talking about a 16 cents per $1,000 assessed value increase if we go with option B, which would help us get the roads back on track and make sure that we cover all the needs of the fire department. I do have some key policy questions for the board's direction on there, if you want to go through each one of those, or if you want to think about it for a while and bring this item back to the next meeting. It's up to you. I know this is a lot of information to digest, so I would think that you'd want to maybe take it home and look it over and then ask questions about it. But
Or can I just,
Sure.
That first one, can you just explain it the second half? Like, what do you mean?
The first question or the first option?
The first question about things to think about and the specifically the second half, or also restore displaced infrastructure capacity. Can you just?
So,
elaborate,
yeah, so
please?
we, just based on the 2026 budget, where we're going to take $875,000 out in a loan to cover the cost of the roads. We weren't sure what was going to happen with one of the other entities that's part of the fire contract. We would need to continue taking out money to complete our roads in the form of a loan, and then some to cover fire fees. And we've kind of been taking the amount that we should be putting into roads and, robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
So restoring displaced infrastructure capacity basically means quit doing that.
We are behind on our road repair schedule by a bit. So we did ramp it up for this year, but we're still very behind on, miles per year that we should be completing within the town. We'd like to get that back on track.
So the question really is, should we talk about, if we're going to go to referendum, adding some increased capacity to help us catch up on our roads instead of borrowing?
I wouldn't say we need to add increased capacity for the road, but we should get it back to where we need to be, which with option B, that would get us where we would be. So for just ease of numbers, let's say for the last several years, we've been putting in about $500,000 into the roads when we should be closer to $750,000 or more. In 2026, we did approve $875,000 for the roads to get us back up to that area. I'd like to see consistently moving forward that all of those funds that we would typically put towards the roads would be there at that $750,000 mark. We'd like to do approximately 4 miles of road per year, and we're down to about 2.75 miles per year.
After the new or updated assessments, do we have a median and an average assessment of the homes in Delafield?
I don't, but I can get that for you.
That'd be great.
That's sort of, I think it's the same question as what, with all this, is this kind of what you're asking, with the new developments we've got going, what will the new levy be?
No,
Okay, so
just the new, so we did a new assessment in 2020, for 2025, right? You got a new tax bill,
Yep.
your value of their home was impacted, right? One way or another. And so obviously there's a new average and there's a new median, and that's all I'm asking.
Sure.
The value's basically doubled.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess but do we know what that, even one of them is? Because, you know, what I wanna, if we've got the number here, right, between,
Are you talking the new mill rate?
The most expensive one,
Yep.
right, and the example at a $500,000 home, that's an $83, call it an $85 a year impact, right? Like, okay, but I don't believe the average home in Delafield is $500,000, so just want to know, do the math and know where that lands, right? Average and median, so I can kind of get an idea for both of them. But, you know, I mean, when ironically enough, as my mother's out of town and I've been getting her mail for her, and she got a bill for her garbage in the town of Delafield, and the cost for Delafield Town of Garbage enrollment, whatever it is, I guess $335 a year, right? So you're talking, even if you call the median or the average home $1 million, you're still talking less of an impact than what our garbage cost is. So,
Right.
But I'd just like to get an idea of where that lands, so we can get an idea of kind of the average and median impact for our citizenry. So.
Absolutely.
So any other
My
questions?
question was sort of, so what happens to the new developments? I mean, when do we see the impact of that? I mean, as we're gathering more tax base with the new homes that were approved?
So-
You know, the new storage thing, I mean,
Yeah.
how does that affect?
So in the beginning, I think I addressed that a little bit, that the
It barely puts a
net,
dent in.
yeah, the net new construction, when they put down the calculation, only gives us about 20,000 more on our levy. So if, let's say, 2.4 million, now you're at 2.4 and 20,000.
Okay.
So we don't really get that much more from such a large development, unfortunately. But we do bill separately for garbage and so forth, which kind of will offset that portion of it. But it doesn't make a big dent in what we would receive in the form of taxes.
But you also you don't start collecting any of that until there's occupancy.
Yep.
Right, so.
Right.
There's still 2 more phases of that, right? So, I mean, even when you're maxing it out, I forget the exact time frame, but I think it was 6 years or something.
I would say like 5 to 7 years if I had to
Right,
guess a
so-
number, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're not gonna see the full impact of that for several years yet.
And I think it's important to note, too, that our mill rate is made up of multiple entities. So we're talking about the specific town rate being $1.14, and someone's like, well, I thought it was $8 or something like that. If you're in the Kettle Moraine School District, it's $8 and some odd cents per thousand. Our other 3 school districts are in the 6s per thousand of assessed value. So when we say that, the net new construction isn't going to really give us that much more for our levy, a lot of that has to be spread throughout the school districts and the college and the county and so forth. So for us, it's really not very impactful, but it is for the school. So about half your tax bill goes to the school.
Well, let's noodle on this, think of any more questions, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
And I'll bring back the median and the average and give some more examples.
That'd be great.
So, Gabby,
oh,
I
go
have
ahead,
just another
go
question. So do we have, so remind me, so on the fire board, Magali, and then Joe, you're just helping us.
That was just for the
that was
IMA
just-
portion
okay,
as
okay,
Ed
so
was
now,
out for.
and then,
Mayor
help me out.
Versus is the other person.
Yeah, Anthony, right, okay. Do you remember how in the past, I mean, it's something, this is it worthy enough? I'm thinking of these survey questions where people, asked if they'd be interested to do something, and most said no, and some said maybe, and some said yes. So is there, I don't know, I'm just thinking, is there a group that's really good at this kind of stuff that has done this, that maybe we, I mean, remember beforehand when we were looking at the fire station years ago, before we built the town hall, where there was a little committee of town residents that met about it and discussed it and really tried to, I mean, so it's not all on you, and it's not on all our, people that, so that was just my thought. Is there another committee that maybe could help us? Again, we don't have to take, we would be like Plan Commission. They could
We are
give
the
us a
committee.
suggestion.
Yeah, we
Well,
are.
that's what I'm saying,
We're
the
elected.
We are the
To be the
committee.
committee.
Thing is,
Yeah.
we're the committee,
For the town.
which policy we want to go for. I mean, I fully support the administrator, and, the option B is obviously, in my mind, the best option, where you know, we fully fund the fire department on the levy and we get our, you know, get back what we gotta get in the roads. Obviously, we can't advocate for a referendum. We have to enlist other folks to help sell this to the residents, but, you know.
That was my, kind of part of my thought. If you had another group of a community people, not just those of us on the board, who actually could participate in this and help be part of the
So-
Yeah,
presentation.
we're not even there yet.
You guys
though.
would make the decision on which item to go for, and then you would ask the qualifying questions that you think your residents would want to know. And then I would get all the information together, and then that group can do the outreach. They should not have any say in whether or not option A, B, or C should be a thing. That is solely your decision.
Okay, so, and I was just looking for an advisory thing. It's just sort of like Plan Commission. Plan Commission, it goes to Plan Commission, then it still has to go to the town board to get approved. So maybe there's, like, Anthony hasn't, what does he say on any of this? I mean, just, that's why
Anthony
we
was
have
heavily
him.
involved in creating the staffing plan. So, you know, they need the people in those boxes to fill those shifts so that the stations are staffed.
And I think it's interesting that the survey is in this same packet, but if you look at the fire department question,
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's
said.
almost half and half.
60% said they're willing to pay more property taxes for fully staffed fire stations. You know,
oh yeah, 60/40, so actually that's pretty good. But
Pretty impressive.
and you got 6% who are wanting to be more involved in town activities, so. I mean,
Right.
I mean, like,
It's insurance. In my mind, it's very small price to pay to have the men and women of LCFR be there when you call 911.
100%. There will undoubtedly, of course,
Be their keyboard warriors and other folks who are gonna say, cut the fat, cut the fat, cut the fat, but I think we've all been up here long enough and have seen and know that, you know, I mean, I've lost a lot of sleep over this, and it darn near killed me, but,
if I can just add the comments about cutting the fat, we don't have any fat.
Correct.
So if you want to compare us, a similar sized community, the city of Delafield is similar to our size. We have actually 1,000 more residents than the city does.
Yes.
We're 98% residential. We don't have any, retail really. We don't have any nursing homes or anything like that. And we run on a staff of 1 full-time person, 2 part-time ladies that alternate on days, and 5 DPW guys. So we really are very, very lean to begin with. So if there was going to be cuts anywhere, it's going to have to be on the roads and maybe the trucks for snow plowing or something to that effect. I mean, it may even come down to where we have to sell a park because we just don't have anything else to pull from.
well, and
Or it said police, isn't that
but
one of the
that
options
is,
too?
that's a piece that is, I think, I would like to believe, so far off of the radar, right, is, Dan Pryor, and I wasn't here before Dan, but Dan Pryor did a wonderful job keeping our cash reserves. We're at a great place. You've done as well, right? We might run on a shoestring, but we run well on a shoestring. And when you talk about, there will be people who, no matter what, anytime you ask for more money as a government, they're going to be angry about it, right? I'm always suspect of it too. I do the math. I'm like, well, where is that going, right?
Nobody wants to pay more.
Nobody wants to pay more. Understood. No problem. But I mean, when you again, which is why median and average home, you can break down that math, but even if you double that and you're talking $170 a year additional to make sure that, response time is in the 7-minute plus minus, 30 seconds or whatever. Look, I don't know anybody else, but I mean, since I've been on this board, I mean, LCFR twice for my father, right? Obviously, Ed, you were impacted by emergency response. Like, it's
I was
stuff that.
impacted by it too.
What's that?
I was impacted by
So,
it too. Like,
it's
everybody.
stuff that, until you're in it, you take it for granted, and it's. Like I said, I hate asking for more money. I really hate the idea of a fire fee. I frankly think that's just a straight up another
Lawsuit?
well, maybe potentially a lawsuit, but you're just making another vein for a new revenue stream that's a tax anyway. It's just a roundabout back end way of taxing people, and I don't agree with that.
Cleaner to keep it on the levy, so that's why I
Right.
think we got to
Right.
go
So,
for it.
I think this, I'm not making any commitments yet till I see some
Right.
some numbers, right? But like, this is clearly cleaner, more appropriate way to ask our citizenry for money. And we're not asked, I don't believe, with whatever option shakes out to be the best, something that is an overly burdensome ask, especially if you've been on the receiving end of it. I would have tipped the guys $100 a time they stopped at my dad's place if I could have, right? Like,
I think it's worth mentioning too that by the 2025 tax mill rate chart that's put out by the county that collects everybody's mill rates, we are locally the third lowest behind the town of Eagle and the town of Ottawa. So we are the lowest, and even with the increase from option B specifically, which is the largest one, we would still be amongst the lowest.
I would just like, I mean, that's great. And
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. I also don't think we use that as an excuse to,
It's not an
Bump it
excuse,
up.
but
I mean,
for
but
those
it's
people that
it's a-
say that our taxes have increased exponentially or that they've increased so much after the assessment, it's just
Right.
not true. 80% of our residents either stayed the same or actually had a reduction in taxes, or, roughly stayed the same. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we're the third lowest out of 37 communities in the county.
On a percentage basis for your value of your home, when you compare to Dane County,
sure.
when you compare to the state of Illinois, our taxes are incredibly, incredibly low, and we take that for granted. And that's, nobody wants to pay more, but I agree with the idea that some of this is an insurance policy and keeps the community safe. And that's what we need to look at.
Absolutely.
defending.
Right, it does, yeah. Town of Ottawa, for those of you at home that didn't hear, the Town of Ottawa does have a fire fee and is not included on their already low mill rate. So, thank you. Yeah. Right. So, all right, I'll bring this to the next meeting with the information that Supervisor Wolfley asked. And did you want me to include the 2025 mill rate chart from the county?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Item D, consideration of the 2026 road improvement program bid approval. There was a memo in the packet from our engineer, David Reeder from R.A. Smith. We got, bids were opened on Thursday, February 5th. There were 3 contractors who placed the bid. Wolf, Payne and Dolan, Stark Paving Corporation. The low bidder was Wolf Paving at $825,423.50, and the recommendation is that we make a motion and accept and award the paving contract to Wolf Paving in that amount.
Motion to approve the bid from Wolf Paving in the amount of $825,423.50.
A second.
Motion is second to award the road paving bid to Wolf for $825,423.50. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item is consideration of a town policy for special roadway signage requests. Example, special needs, medical conditions, and non-standard warning signs. Again, I'll turn this over to Administrator Lutke.
So I included a memo and then the copy of the City of Two Rivers policy that they have in place, but I printed out for you our legal opinions from some of the questions that I asked our attorney. Based on what the request is and the information from our attorney, I think if you want to create a policy that would allow this type of signage, which is what I'm going to kind of get away from the request and who requested it, and talk about more of a policy of if more people want to do this type of thing. But did you want to, as a group, look at every single sign request that comes in, or did you want me to do that, or did you want our engineer to do that? Do you want the residents who are requesting to pay 100% of the cost of material? That's some of the other communities that do this type of thing, make them pay for the sign and the post, but then the community covers the installation of the sign. Are our attorney indicated that it would be a good idea to put a hold harmless agreement in place to protect the town. And then I think I'm basically just looking for direction if you think we should allow it, and if we should, do you want something laid out like this to let residents know what the process would be?
Where is this being proposed to being used?
So
It would be a residential street within the town
Yeah,
of
just, I think
Delafield.
your point
Right.
is just look at it in general.
it's on a dead-end road where there, after this person's home, there's 5 houses. It's not approved by like the state level. It's called MUTCD, and I can never remember what it is, but it's called Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And to put a sign like this on a dead-end street is not seen as being effective, and then after a while, people in general will ignore the sign.
Why is this any different than a sign they can go buy from Home Depot that's a giant turtle that says slow down?
Right. I mean, we would have to allow them to put it in the right of way, and then we would want to put it in a place where it wouldn't get hit by the plow and so forth and so on. But I don't know if you
On
even
their
want
own
to
property?
start. No, it would be in the right of way because it
But
has to be,
I mean,
you know,
within their property lines of the right of way.
it would be in, you know, similar to a
Adjacent
stop
or
sign,
close.
you know, or speed limit sign or something like that. So,
I don't know, this is a slippery slope.
very.
Well, yeah, it is a slippery slope. I mean, I guess that's why I would ask that we maybe look at working with the attorney to see what kind of policy would be in effect. I mean, in my mind, any policy would have the requester have to pay for the sign. Taxpayers necessarily shouldn't have to pay for a sign like this. But I mean, I guess
Are we gonna have them pay to remove the sign too, once they move?
that's,
Or the child.
Need the
that's,
sign?
that's what
away.
we have to talk about and figure out, so.
Cause we, yeah, I mean, this is a tough one. You're sympathetic to what they're dealing with, but why is this a city issue and not just putting out a Home Depot sign or a cone or?
I'm concurring with what you said. Is there anything wrong with just letting them put their own sign up, and we're
Like
not part
those
of it at
little,
all?
those little child cutouts that say slow down. There's nothing
Everywhere.
that prevents them from doing
Right,
that.
so I mean, so what I'm saying is that, but that's obviously not acceptable for, in this case, doing that isn't what they want, because I agree
Right.
that would just be a way, and then we're not really even involved.
I'm not even
So-
sure, what issues are they experiencing?
He didn't indicate there were any issues, but he said he saw in another community that there was a special sign in a neighborhood, but I believe that that sign was on a more heavily used thoroughfare and not a dead-end street.
So like.
Can't
the
confirm,
only
but-
thi- The only thing I can think of is the blind people sign that's in the
There's,
city of
yeah,
Delafield.
there's
close to
deaf and
that.
blind signs around, yeah.
That's a heavy traffic road, right?
Yes, right, that's on a major thoroughfare. So, I mean, I can understand those signs, but I don't know about this one.
Is there anything that would prevent if the person did the sign themselves,
Mm-hmm.
like we see the cutout, like we see them around, can they put them in our road right away?
They can put them in the right-of-way. If it's not a permanent fixture, they can put them at the end of their driveway.
Yep. I mean,
That,
it
there's
almost
nothing
seems
that
like
prevents
would
that.
be-
Seems more effective,
Seems-
doesn't it?
Right, that's, I mean, yep, that's my gut feeling, because you're right, that you, after a while, you don't see the signs, because they've been
Okay,
there for so long.
It's not slowing you down.
Right, but I think if you had them portable, you could have it up for a while, you could actually take it down for a while, and then all of a sudden, when you put it back up, somebody's like, oh, I don't remember, you know, so that to me almost seems more effective to make them, that they could go up
Permanent?
or down. Not that we're trying to throw all the burden back on them, but it just seems like that would be an effective.
So currently, we just don't allow that stuff. I can make those kind of suggestions and see what kind of feedback I get from the requester.
You're gonna have to have a referendum to cover the costs,
Again, this may be the cost that they would bear the cost of that.
but it's a slippery slope is all I'm saying.
Right, I mean, it has it in here, right? Sign should be placed approximately 150 feet from the property line, okay, so now you're putting it on someone else's, in front of someone else's house
Yep.
too, right? Impacting other people, and the slippery slope argument is not necessarily that it's not. How many streets are we gonna have with a DOT sign on it? I don't know, I mean,
It's not technically a DOT sign, actually.
Or
It's just a special
a
order.
specialty sign.
Specialty sign, yeah.
You know, the,
I'm worried about people having a false sense of safety. If they get the sign put up and they think everything's okay, and if, heaven
That's
forbid,
what
something
that's
were
what
to
the study is saying.
happen, yeah.
First, that they don't prove, yeah, again, and
Yeah.
being compassionate to our resident that is looking to do something, I think I think we don't want to give I think we care. I think as a board, we care, so, but we actually think that it sounds like maybe doing something else might be more effective,
and we have a
doing
gentleman
it their own
in
time, their own sign.
And maybe we can go back to them and find out what their concerns are first in their immediate area. I mean, some of them are obvious, right? They want to protect their child. We get this. But are there cars speeding on their cul-de-sac? Is there something else going on that is leading them to?
I think it's mostly delivery drivers for those last 5 houses, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Delivery drivers don't pay attention to my signs to say, leave the stuff in the box right here at the top. Don't come down the driveway and run over my dogs. I get calls every day, will you put your dogs back in the house? So if they're not paying attention to my signs,
Right.
are they gonna pay attention to this sign?
So status quo right now and then get more information, or do you want to
Yeah, I'm
leave
open
Maybe
to
it?
ask
hear-
them what
hear
their
the
concerns
feedback,
are,
yeah.
so we know a little
Okay.
bit more.
So I'll bring back this one at
Maybe
the
we could
next.
do a little root cause analysis.
That's, I mean, similar situation on our street, and the gentleman has the little green guy you buy at Home Depot with an orange flag,
Yeah,
and all the neighbors, like,
right.
no.
Right.
Actually, those are more effective, I think, because they're there, and then they can go away and they can go back. I do think those then are just a permanent sign, the ones that are on your street.
Yeah.
So for our resident, would like to help
No,
them
I
and
would
think that would be.
Tend to agree. Same, I mean, I remember living on a street with a deaf child sign, and it's like, at some point, you're like, wait, oh, that's right. It's blended in, and you just stop paying attention to it, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Announcements, there's a fire board meeting tomorrow evening. 4:30, there's a swearing-in ceremony, and then 5 o'clock the meeting starts. Station 37, Wales, Genesee. Town Plan Commission meets next week, Tuesday. We need a quorum because there's a public hearing. Actually, I think there's 2 public hearings.
Only one of them really requires your presence, but there's 2, yeah.
Next town board meeting is Tuesday, March 10th. It's the only meeting in March because there is no meeting on March 24th because of in-person absentee voting here at the town hall for the April 7th.
I am just, that initial meeting that we should is on the calendar to review the IMA with the fire department, March 3rd, 10 a.m. at Station 42.
Is that the
As-
administrators meeting?
Yeah, but it is it's open to the public, so if anybody were
10
to.
a.m. on the 3rd?
10 a.m. on the, shoot, I just closed it, 1 second.
March 3rd, you said.
March 3rd, 10 a.m., Station 42.
Thank you.
So, just as an FYI,
Look for a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
A second.
Just a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned 5-0. Thank you.